The late 1940s and early 50s were a time of heightened tension and paranoia in the U.S. Deep fear tormented America, causing tighter restraints on the freedom of its citizens. In the midst of the early Cold War and the paranoia caused by communism threatening to completely alter the order of society, the citizens looked towards religion as a refuge from communistic ideals.
Religion has always been central to the American identity. During the Cold War, that was clearly the case because the U.S. was in a life-and-death struggle with the godless communists.
Americans hoped to stop the spread of communism by putting their faith in the Production Code Administration and government censors. On the other hand, many believed that censorship was a violation of rights. But despite these First Amendment supporters, the majority of the nation was not prepared for Joseph Burston's controversial movie, which would permanently change censorship and how movies were perceived in the United States. Some people believe that the government should take responsibility and censor things from the public, while others believe the government does not have any right to infringe on their liberties. U.S. history has shown the struggle between these two extremes, and in the mid-1900s, this argument was prominent. The New York Board of Motion Picture Censorship took the responsibility of protecting the public from profanity in 1909. It later became the National Board of Review because eventually most major motion picture producers agreed to not release any films unless they received the board's seal of approval. This seal was the film industry's first formal attempt to prevent legal censorship through self-regulation.
Ohio held was that it's just a business and that the state has a legitimate police power to regulate businesses. And it wasn't considered as part of a free press.
In the 1915 case, it was also decided that states had the right to censor, leading to an influx of censored movies. The Motion Picture Producers and Distributors of America, formed in 1922, also pursued self-regulation policies. They established a branch, later called the Production Code Administration, specifically to regulate content by controlling the film's moral values, including vulgar content and radical messages. In 1934, the American Catholic Church formed the Legion of Decency, whose goal was to monitor motion pictures and organize mass actions against them, much like they did against an Italian film called The Miracle, which was banned because of its sacrilegious messages. Although the government does have the right to ban media for the greater good of the public, in the case of Burston v. Wilson, the government overstepped its boundaries by disregarding the separation of church and state and the First Amendment. The Miracle, directed by Roberto Rossellini, is an Italian film viewed as sacrilegious by many conservatives. The film, inspired by the story of Mother Mary, portrays a young woman, Nani, who is seduced by a traveler she believes to be Saint Joseph. After begging to be taken out of her miserable life, he intoxicates her and presumably takes advantage of her. Unable to remember the event clearly, she soon discovers she is pregnant and concludes that the child has been immaculately conceived. The people of the town ridicule her until she is forced to leave. The film abruptly ends after she has her child. The Miracle did not do well in Italy, so Rossellini brought it to the Venice Film Festival, where American film distributor Joseph Burston fell in love with the film and brought it to America. Burston brought the film to New York in 1950, and it received the seal of approval from New York censors. Shortly after its debut at New York's Paris Theater, powerful Catholics, including the Legion of Decency, attacked the film and alerted City License Commissioner of New York, Edward McCaffrey. Once he saw the film, he immediately ordered the theater to stop showing it and then proceeded to revoke the theater's license because he found the film officially and personally blasphemous. The movie was wrongfully banned because there was not a justified reason to revoke the license. In the 1919 case, Schenck v. United States, the court ruled that the First Amendment did not include any form of free speech that presented danger to the public, such as shouting fire in a crowded movie theater. This film did not present a clear danger to the public, nor was there any other reason for banning it. Therefore, it was unfairly censored.
It was trying to protect harmful material from being disseminated to people, including youths. The Miracle, it was an Italian, depicted what they considered to be sacrilegious scenes, sacrilegious to the Catholic Church.
Other than the sacrilegious messages, including ridicule of the Virgin Mary, the film was partially banned because of the church's dislike of Rossellini. A year prior to the miracle, he had been filming his movie Stromboli when he had an affair with actress Ingrid Bergman, who left her own husband and child to marry Rossellini. The church also used the decision made in the case Mutual Film Corporation v. the Industrial Commission of Ohio to justify banning the film because it stated that movies were not protected under the First Amendment. The court hearing was held on April 24, 1952. Ephraim London, Burston's lawyer, made the argument that the film had been incorrectly reviewed and was not sacrilegious, but the story of a deeply religious woman who was taken advantage of. On May 26, 1952, it was decided that the film could be shown in theaters on the grounds that banning the film violated the First Amendment, freedom of speech, and promise of separation of church and state. The case had a monumental effect on movie censorship. Not only did it become more difficult to censor movies, but it also overruled the decision made in Mutual Film Corporation v. Industrial Commission of Ohio. More profane movies like The Moon is Blue were box office hits despite not receiving the code seal or being condemned by the Legion of Decency. The Moon is Blue specifically led to the Production Code Administration becoming increasingly more tolerant towards what was considered controversial subjects. Because of the miracle case, the church could no longer engage government in suppressing heresy. Furthermore, it invalidated many local and state censorship boards and changed the movie industry's rating standards, leading to the modern-day rating system. Prior to 1952, movies were more easily censored and deemed too obscene for viewers. The miracle case and the approaching end of the Second Red Scare changed this and caused a decline of the church's influence on the nation. The Legion of Decency and the Production Code Administration's conservative leaders retired and were replaced by more liberal leaders to better represent the new era of bolder movies. In 1965, state censorship ended completely, the church's Legion of Decency changed its name, and a year later, the Production Code Administration dropped its code. In the past, movies were censored to preserve the innocence of youth, and although this is not as prevalent today, movies are still somewhat censored and that they are rated. However, this is done loosely, and there is still a question of what requirements a movie must fill in order to be seen as more mature. Intense violence, excessive cursing, drug abuse, or sexual content are the leading factors the Motion Picture Association of America uses to give a movie an R rating. Although, this organization tends to be more tolerant towards copious amounts of aggression, normally giving a violent movie the PG-13 rating. Censorship became a part of modern music as well as movies in trying to protect children from profanity. Tipper Gore wanted to preserve the innocence of youth by putting warning labels on music.
I'm talking about pervasive messages that are available to kids of any age that are explicit and violent, and parents have a right to know that. Parents in this country right now aren't tuned in. They're not aware of what their kids are seeing on television and listening to, and they really need to so that they can nurture their child and protect their child.
She helped form the Parents Music Resource Center, which took the argument to Supreme Court. Her beliefs were countered by several musicians, including Frank Zappa and Dee Snider.
The PMRC proposal is an ill-conceived piece of nonsense which fails to deliver any real benefits to children, infringes the civil liberties of people who are not children. Why haven't you considered your child's need for consumer information? Your children have a right to know that something besides pop music exists.
It is my job as a parent to monitor what my children see, hear, and read during their preteen years. The full responsibility for this falls on the shoulders of my wife and I because there is no one else capable of making these judgments for us.
It was decided that parental advisory labels would be issued to explicit music, although the warnings were generic and did not specifically categorize the profanity of the lyrics as originally desired by the Parents Music Resource Center. The government has some responsibility to protect the public from profanity, like putting warning labels on music or rating movies to inform the public of the material's content. However, in the case of Burston v. Wilson, the government overstepped its boundaries by violating the First Amendment and banning a movie people had the right to see. In many cases, people will be exposed to this sort of content despite the attempts to protect them from it. With mediums such as the internet available to anyone, content can no longer be hidden from the public.
Mas vela pelo tuo segredo